The night in Atlanta was warm and vibrant, with the city lights flickering in the distance like stars responding to the pulsating rhythm of urban life. The Magnolia restaurant, located in the heart of downtown, was an oasis of sophistication and elegance. With its shimmering chandeliers and dark wooden furnishings, the restaurant attracted a select clientele willing to pay a premium for a luxurious dining experience. Jasmine Carter, a 22-year-old black woman, worked as a waitress at the Magnolia. With her impeccable uniform and welcoming smile, she moved through the dining area with grace and efficiency. Jasmine was studying law at the local college and saw her job at the restaurant as a way to finance her education. She was a dedicated and determined young woman, passionate about justice and equality. That night, Jasmine was serving a particularly demanding table. Sophie Winters, a 24-year-old blonde, was accompanied by a group of friends. Sophie, an heiress to a significant fortune and known for her arrogantly disdainful behavior, was at the center of attention, surrounded by an aura of wealth and privilege. "Jasmine, darling," Sophie called out, her tone laced with sarcasm and disdain. "I think there's a mistake with my drink. I asked for a dry martini, not one with lemon." Jasmine approached, trying to remain calm. "I apologize, Miss Winters. I'll fix that immediately." As Jasmine walked away to correct the order, Sophie continued talking with her friends, casting disparaging glances at the waitress. "Have you ever seen something so disastrous?" Sophie said, laughing with her head tilted. "I always wonder how people like her manage to keep a job in a place like this." Her friends laughed, and the murmurs of their conversation grew louder, making the situation even more uncomfortable for Jasmine. She returned with the corrected drink and a forced professional smile. "Here's your dry martini, Miss Winters. I hope it's to your liking now." Sophie took the glass with a brusque movement and looked at Jasmine with contempt. "Finally. But tell me, do you really think a job like this will get you anywhere?" "I have my doubts." Jasmine forced a smile. "I'm doing my best to ensure everyone has a good experience." Sophie raised an eyebrow. "Well, if this is your best, it's truly a shame. It must be difficult not having more options." The humiliation Jasmine felt was palpable. Those words, laden with subtle racism and class superiority, cut deeply. She turned to go back to her station, trying to ignore the heat rising in her face and the knot forming in her stomach. As she continued serving other tables, Jasmine felt the tension in her shoulders. She knew Sophie's words were not just a personal attack but a manifestation of a worldview that seemed more prevalent than she wanted to admit. The rest of the night passed in a blur of constant movement and forced smiles. When Jasmine finally managed to leave work, the cool night air was a temporary relief, but the humiliation continued to hammer away in her mind. Arriving home, Jasmine sat on the edge of her bed and looked at her reflection in the mirror. The face staring back at her looked tired and sad, and she couldn't shake off Sophie's cruel words. She knew she needed to find a way to cope with it, but she had no idea how. The incident at the restaurant was a painful reminder of the inequality and cruelty that still prevailed in society. And, although the world seemed gigantic and unyielding, Jasmine was determined not to let that moment define her future. The next day dawned cloudy, with heavy clouds hanging over Atlanta, as if the sky was mirroring Jasmine Carter's state of mind. However, the work at the Magnolia restaurant went on as usual, with the buzz of service and the clinking of dishes filling the refined atmosphere. Jasmine, with an impeccable uniform and a mask of professionalism, was back at her post, trying to push aside thoughts of the previous night. As she attended to a table, Jasmine couldn't help but notice Sophie Winters' presence again. Sophie, with her typical haughty attitude, was accompanied by more friends, and the atmosphere around them was charged with an aura of privilege and disdain. "Jasmine, darling," Sophie called out in a tone that sounded almost challenging. "Do you still remember me?" Jasmine turned to her, forcing a smile. "Of course, Miss Winters. How can I assist you?" Sophie looked at the table and, with a dismissive gesture, pointed at Jasmine's plate. "I asked for the salad without onions. There are onions here. It's not that hard, is it?" "I'm sorry," Jasmine responded, trying to stay calm. "I'll replace the dish immediately." As Jasmine walked away to resolve the issue, Sophie muttered to her friends, but loud enough for Jasmine to hear. It's unbelievable how these people can't get a simple thing right. It must be a horrible job where incompetence is the norm. Sophie's friends laughed, and Jasmine felt moisture in her eyes. She took a deep breath, trying not to let the words affect her professionalism. She returned quickly with a new salad and waited for a moment to get approval. "I hope this is better," Jasmine said, forcing an optimistic tone. Sophie examined the salad, her expression still filled with disdain. "Finally. But frankly, the service here is as bad as the food. It's a shame, considering the price we're paying." The rest of the group seemed indifferent, absorbed in their conversations and laughter, but Jasmine could feel the judging and disdainful glances. When the group finished their meal and Sophie paid the bill, she left a tiny tip, a clear reflection of her contempt. As Jasmine cleared the table, one of her colleagues, Marco, approached. He was one of the veteran waiters and had witnessed the interaction. "Hey, Jasmine," Marco began, lowering his voice so only Jasmine could hear. "I saw what happened last night and again today. Are you okay?" Jasmine hesitated before responding. "I'm handling it. Just a bit tired." Marco frowned. "You know you don't have to accept that kind of treatment. We have the option to report this. I've seen things like this before. The restaurant might not be the most welcoming place sometimes, but this is unacceptable." "I know," Jasmine replied, looking at the floor, "but it's complicated. I don't want to cause trouble, and I'm afraid of the repercussions." "It shouldn't be that way," Marco insisted. "You deserve respect, and if there's no justice here, we can seek it outside. Don't let this go unnoticed." Jasmine pondered Marco's words as she finished her shift. The idea of fighting against what she saw as an injustice was daunting, especially considering Sophie's power and influence. But the indignation she felt was also pushing her to act. When she got home, Jasmine couldn't relax. The feeling of having been disrespected and the injustice she experienced weighed heavily on her. She knew she needed to do something about it, but fear and uncertainty still paralyzed her. Yet, determination was beginning to take shape. Jasmine didn't want that incident to be just a painful reminder of a bad day. She wanted it to be the beginning of change. Finally, sitting at her small study desk with law books stacked around her, Jasmine made a decision. She would write a formal letter to the Magnolia restaurant and to Sophie Winters. It was time to seek justice and, if necessary, fight for her voice to be heard. The following days passed slowly for Jasmine Carter. Each morning began with the hope that the humiliation from the previous night would fade, but reality always caught up with her faster than she wished. Sophie Winters's behavior still echoed in her thoughts, and the emotional impact of the situation was becoming increasingly heavy. That morning, Jasmine found herself at a local cafe, seeking some normalcy amid the internal chaos. She sat with a cup of coffee and a law book open in front of her, but her mind was far from the study material. Evelyn Carter, her mother, entered the cafe and spotted Jasmine in the corner. Evelyn was a middle-aged woman with an air of dignity and strength and had always been Jasmine's pillar of support. She approached and sat at the table. "Good morning, sweetheart," Evelyn said with a gentle smile. "Are you okay? You look worried." Jasmine tried to smile. "Good morning, Mom. I'm just tired. Work has been tough lately." Evelyn looked at her with concern. "I heard about what happened at the restaurant. Are you taking care of yourself? We can't let these things get you down." Jasmine hesitated, looking at her mother. "It was more than just a bad day, Mom. Sophie and her friends humiliated me publicly. I felt like all the hard work I've done to get here meant nothing to them." Evelyn took Jasmine's hand and squeezed it. "You know that doesn't define who you are. You're an amazing person with a bright future ahead, but I understand that it's affected you deeply." "I know," Jasmine replied, her voice breaking, "but I feel like I need to do something. I don't want this to go unanswered, but I'm not sure if I have the courage to face it." Evelyn looked at Jasmine with a mixture of compassion and firmness. "You have more courage than you realize. If you feel that this needs to be addressed, I will stand by you, no matter what." As they talked, Aisha, a close friend of Jasmine's and a college classmate, walked into the cafe and joined them. Aisha was active in social movements and known for her vibrant spirit. "Hi, Jasmine." "Hi, Mrs. Carter." Aisha greeted, noticing Jasmine's worried face. I heard about what? Jasmine Carter knew that the next step in her complaint against the Magnolia restaurant and Sophie Winter's office was crucial: gathering evidence and witnesses. Investigating and documenting the incident required meticulousness and patience. Jasmine was determined to ensure her complaint was solid and hard to contest. At Magnolia Restaurant, Jasmine decided to make a discreet visit to try to speak with some coworkers. She knew that discrimination wasn't an isolated phenomenon and wanted to find out if others had faced similar situations. With her heart racing, she walked into the restaurant during the meal break and looked for Marco, her colleague and ally. "Hey, Marco," Jasmine began, trying to keep her tone casual. "Do you have a moment to talk?" Marco raised an eyebrow, but noticed the seriousness in Jasmine's expression. "Sure, what's up?" Jasmine glanced around, making sure no one was listening. "I'm trying to gather more information about the incident with Sophie and also about how the restaurant handles similar situations. Have you ever seen or heard about discrimination or abuse from customers?" Marco hesitated for a moment, looking around before responding. "Well, I've seen some things that aren't exactly ideal. Some customers really don't treat the staff with the respect we deserve. And the management, well, they tend to turn a blind eye to these problems." "Why?" "I'm preparing a formal complaint," Jasmine explained, "and I want to make sure my complaint is well-founded. If you have any information or know of other employees who might have faced similar situations, it would be really helpful." Marco looked at Jasmine with concern. "I know a few colleagues who might have gone through similar situations. I'll talk to them and see if they're willing to help." Grateful, Jasmine said her goodbyes and left the restaurant. Her next stop was a meeting with Aisha to discuss the details of the investigation. They met at a local library, a quiet place that provided the perfect environment for discussing important matters. "Hi, Aisha," Jasmine said, finding her friend at the table. "Thanks for meeting with me. I'm gathering information and could use your help to understand what else I can do." Aisha smiled, adjusting her glasses. "Of course, Jasmine. What do you have in mind?" "I'm trying to talk to other restaurant employees to see if there's a pattern of behavior or similar issues," Jasmine began. "I also need to understand the legal process for gathering evidence and potential witnesses. Can you help me find out more about that?" Aisha nodded, opening her laptop. "Let's start with the resources you can use. There are organizations and civil rights lawyers who can offer support and advice on documenting these issues. Also, it's crucial to have good documentation and, if possible, witnesses who can corroborate your story." Jasmine spent the rest of the afternoon with Aisha, reviewing materials and devising an action plan. With Aisha's help, Jasmine identified some local organizations that could provide assistance and began preparing a questionnaire to collect testimonies from her coworkers. A few days later, Jasmine received a call from Marco with good news. "Hi, Jasmine, it's Marco. I spoke with some colleagues, and a few are willing to talk about their experiences. They're concerned, but they want to help." "That's great," Jasmine replied, relieved. "This could make a big difference in my case. I'll start scheduling meetings with them." With information and witnesses beginning to come together, Jasmine felt she was making significant progress in strengthening her complaint. She knew the path would be long and demanding, but she was determined not to let fear or doubt hold her back. The support from friends and colleagues was a constant reminder that the fight for justice was worth it, and Jasmine was ready to face the challenges ahead. The news of Jasmine Carter's complaint quickly spread. In a high-end restaurant like Magnolia, the scandal rapidly gained attention. The repercussions were widely covered by local media, sparking a frenzy of discussions about social justice and discrimination. Sophie Winters, on the other hand, was not used to facing consequences for her behavior. Upon receiving notice that Jasmine had formally accused her actions, Sophie reacted with disdain and anger. Sitting in her luxurious apartment in downtown Atlanta, Sophie was meeting with Andrew Blackwell, a renowned defense attorney hired by her family to handle the situation. "Andrew, what the hell is happening?" Sophie began, her tone filled with frustration. "I can't believe Jasmine had the audacity to sue." Andrew, impeccably dressed in a suit and with a serious expression, looked at Sophie with professional calm. "Sophie, we need to handle this carefully. The complaint Jasmine filed could impact much more than just the restaurant. It's crucial that we have a solid strategy to deal with it. But it's absurd, Sophie exclaimed. I just spoke my mind. Her reaction is over the top. Andrew frowned. You might have underestimated the impact of your words. What you said could be interpreted as discrimination, and that can have legal and reputational consequences. Sophie huffed, crossing her arms. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want this to interfere with my life or what I have. I understand your concern, Andrew said. We'll need to prepare a strong defense. This will include discrediting Jasmine's claims and showing that the incident was an isolated situation, not a pattern of behavior. Meanwhile, Jasmine was in a meeting with Aisha and Marco, discussing the next steps. I heard Sophie hired a famous lawyer to handle this, Jasmine said, her tone concerned. They must be preparing an aggressive defense. Aisha looked at Jasmine with determination. Don't worry. If your case is solid and you have enough evidence, they won't be able to just sweep this under the rug. It's a matter of making sure all the details are well documented. Marco, sitting next to Jasmine, added, Also, it's important that you keep gathering statements and evidence. If things escalate, you might need more public support. With that in mind, Jasmine began scheduling meetings with the co-workers who had agreed to testify. Elaine, a co-worker who was on duty during the incident, was one of the first to offer her testimony. Thank you for coming, Elaine, Jasmine said, meeting her at a quiet cafe. Your testimony could be crucial for my case. Elaine, a middle-aged woman with a sympathetic expression, nodded. I was there and saw what happened. I can't help but feel bad for not having done more at the time. I'm willing to share what I saw. I really appreciate that, Jasmine said, with a grateful look. It means a lot to me. The support from Elaine and other colleagues helped Jasmine feel that she was preparing to face the legal battle with a strong set of evidence. The weight of responsibility was present, but Jasmine's determination to seek justice was stronger than ever. That night, Sophie and Andrew met to discuss the defense strategy. Sophie, still frustrated, asked, How can we turn this to our advantage? Andrew looked at the documents spread out on the table. We need to show that Jasmine's behavior is motivated by revenge or that her claims are exaggerated. Additionally, we should highlight your response in a way that minimizes the impact of your words. Sophie nodded, though her expression still showed unease. I just want this to be over. I don't want to deal with this drama anymore. As preparations for the legal confrontation continued, Jasmine was focused on gathering as much evidence as possible and ensuring that her complaint was taken seriously. The fight for justice was just beginning, and she was determined to see it through to the end. With the media's growing attention and the tense atmosphere surrounding the case, Jasmine Carter prepared for the next significant step in her journey, a crucial meeting with Sophie Winter's lawyers to discuss the possibility of a settlement. Andrew Blackwell had requested a meeting at a neutral mediation office where both parties could discuss resolution options. Jasmine, accompanied by Aisha and her lawyer, David Mitchell, was nervous but determined. They met in the conference room of the mediation office, a formal and professional setting. Andrew entered the room, bringing with him Sophie Winters, who looked visibly uncomfortable but tried to maintain a confident demeanor. The atmosphere was charged with tension. Good morning, Jasmine. Aisha. David. Andrew greeted with a neutral tone. Let's get started. Sophie is willing to discuss a possible settlement to resolve this situation. David, Jasmine's lawyer, raised an eyebrow. We're open to discussion, but we want to ensure that any settlement is fair and does not downplay the seriousness of the allegations. Sophie, with a somewhat embarrassed expression, looked at Jasmine. I want to apologize for what happened, she started, her voice hesitant. I understand that what I said was inappropriate, and I'm sorry for causing so much distress. Jasmine, though still hurt, tried to remain calm. I appreciate the apology, Sophie, but it's not just about an apology. It's about ensuring that this doesn't happen again and that I receive fair compensation for the suffering I endured. Andrew interjected. Sophie is willing to offer financial compensation and also to make a donation to a civil rights organization as part of the settlement. We want to resolve this in a way that is beneficial for both parties. David looked at Jasmine and then at Andrew. Financial compensation is one aspect, but we also need to ensure that measures are taken to prevent future incidents. If Sophie is willing to publicly commit to supporting anti-discrimination policies and promoting a respectful environment, it could help in reaching a settlement. Sophie looked at David with a thoughtful expression. I really don't want this to drag on. I'd like to do something positive to make up for what happened. Jasmine thought for a moment and then said, I think acknowledging the mistake and committing to support anti-discrimination policies is a step in the right direction. But I need to see the details in writing before agreeing. Andrew nodded. Understood. We'll prepare a formal settlement agreement outlining the terms and conditions, including the financial compensation, the donation, and Sophie's commitment to supporting anti-discrimination initiatives. With the discussion reaching a point of agreement, Jasmine and her team were given time to review the terms. The meeting ended on a hopeful note, with both sides showing a willingness to find common ground. Jasmine left the mediation office feeling a mix of relief and cautious optimism. While the settlement was not a perfect solution, it was a step towards justice and reconciliation. The process had been emotionally challenging, but Jasmine was determined to use her experience to advocate for positive change and ensure that others would not have to face similar challenges. As the days went by, the media coverage continued, and the public's interest in the case persisted. Jasmine's courage in coming forward had sparked a broader conversation about discrimination and the importance of creating inclusive environments. Jasmine knew that this was just the beginning of her journey. With the support of her friends, allies, and the lessons learned from the process, she was ready to continue her advocacy and work towards a more equitable society. In the end, Jasmine Carter had turned a painful experience into an opportunity for change, and her fight for justice had become a beacon of hope for others facing similar struggles. With the settlement finalized and signed, Jasmine Carter felt a deep sense of relief knowing the case was resolved. However, her journey was far from over. The next step was to ensure that the changes promised by Magnolia Restaurant were actually being implemented and that the positive impact she sought was being achieved. Sophie Winters and the restaurant's management had committed to making a donation to a civil rights organization and implementing an anti-discrimination training program for all staff. Now it was time to check on how these promises were being fulfilled. Jasmine scheduled a meeting with the restaurant's management to discuss the details of the changes. On the appointed day, she arrived at Magnolia Restaurant, which now looked a bit different to her due to the recent turn of events in her life. David Mitchell, her lawyer, accompanied Jasmine, providing support and ensuring the terms of the agreement were respected. The meeting was set with Henry Phillips, the restaurant's general manager. Good morning, Henry, Jasmine greeted as she entered the meeting room. Thank you for having us. I'd like to discuss the promised changes in the settlement. Henry, a middle-aged man with a serious expression, offered a nervous smile. Good morning, Jasmine. Of course, we're here to make sure all the promises are kept. David, standing next to Jasmine, began to address the main points. Let's review the terms of the agreement. First, we'd like to confirm that the donation to the civil rights organization has been made. Henry nodded. Yes, the donation of $50,000 was made to the Human Rights Foundation. We received confirmation of the transaction and can provide a copy of the receipt if needed. Jasmine felt a sense of relief upon hearing this. That's great. And what about the anti-discrimination training program? When and how will it be implemented? We are in the process of hiring a specialized diversity and inclusion consulting firm, Henry explained. They'll begin conducting training for the entire staff in the coming weeks. We want to ensure everyone is properly informed and trained. David took note. That's a good start. We need to make sure the training is not just a formality but something that will truly make a difference. Can you provide a detailed schedule and the content of the training once it's available? Henry agreed. Yes, certainly. As soon as the schedule is ready, we'll send it to you and do our best to meet all expectations. During the meeting, Jasmine also took the opportunity to discuss some ideas with Henry on how to create a more inclusive and open work environment. I'd like to suggest setting up a diversity committee within the restaurant, Jasmine said. This could help ensure that the commitment to inclusion is maintained and that employees' concerns are heard. Henry seemed receptive to the idea. That's something we can consider. I'll bring the suggestion to management and discuss how we can implement it. After the meeting, Jasmine and David left the restaurant with a sense of accomplishment. Jasmine was pleased with the progress, but knew there was still much to be done. You did a great job today, David commented as they walked to the car. The management seems committed to fulfilling the terms of the agreement. Yes, I'm relieved to see they're taking this seriously, Jasmine replied. But I still want to ensure the training program is genuinely effective. I'll be keeping a close eye on that. A few days later, Jasmine received an invitation to attend a launch ceremony for the new training program. The event was held at Magnolia Restaurant, and the management invited various representatives from the Human Rights Foundation and other partners to witness the restaurant's public commitment. During the ceremony, Sophie Winters gave a brief speech, publicly apologizing and expressing her commitment to fostering a more inclusive environment. Jasmine was in the audience, accompanied by Aisha and David. Sophie seems genuinely regretful and willing to change, Aisha commented as she watched the speech. That's a good sign. Jasmine agreed. Yes, but the real test will be how these changes are implemented day to day. I'll continue to monitor to ensure the commitment translates into concrete actions. The event marked a new beginning for Magnolia Restaurant and for Jasmine. Although the journey had been challenging, she felt that the changes she had helped to bring about could have a lasting impact. With the case resolved and changes underway, Jasmine was ready to move forward and focus on new goals. Her experience had been a lesson in resilience and courage, and she was eager to continue fighting for justice and equality in other areas of her life. A month after the training program launch ceremony, Jasmine met Aisha at a local cafe, a place that now held special meaning for them, having been the site of many conversations and planning sessions. It's amazing to think how much has changed in such a short time, Aisha remarked as they settled at an outdoor table. It feels like ages since that first meeting with Sophie. Jasmine smiled, thoughtful. Yes, and it's made me realize how important it is to fight for what's right, even when it feels difficult. It's been a tough experience, but also very educational. Aisha looked at Jasmine with pride. You did an incredible job. And now that things are calmer, what are you thinking of doing next? Jasmine hesitated for a moment, reflecting. I've always wanted to work in something that could make a difference in people's lives. Given what I've been through, I feel like I want to get more involved with social justice and civil rights causes. That sounds like a fantastic idea, Aisha responded, excited. Have you thought about which organizations or initiatives you'd like to support? Yes, I'm considering volunteering with some local organizations that focus on education and inclusion, Jasmine explained. I want to help create more inclusive environments and raise awareness about discrimination issues. As they talked, Jasmine's phone buzzed with a message from David Mitchell, her lawyer. She read it quickly and smiled. Aisha, you won't believe this. David invited me to a gala organized by the Human Rights Foundation. They want to honor me for my work and my fight. Aisha's face lit up with a broad smile. That's wonderful, Jasmine. You deserve that recognition. And it'll be a great opportunity to continue connecting with people who share your interests and goals. The gala took place the following week at an elegant event hall. Jasmine, dressed in a stunning blue gown, arrived at the venue with Aisha. The ceremony was filled with prominent community figures, civil rights advocates, and representatives from various organizations. David Mitchell met Jasmine at the entrance and greeted her with a warm smile. Jasmine, you look radiant. We're so happy to see you here. You truly deserve all the recognition for your courage and the positive impact you've made. Thank you, David, Jasmine replied, feeling a bit nervous. It's an honor to be here and to contribute in any way I can. During the ceremony, Jasmine was called to the stage to receive an award recognizing her activism and contribution to raising awareness about discrimination. As she walked up to the stage, Jasmine felt a whirlwind of emotions, pride, relief, and gratitude. I'd like to dedicate this award to everyone who faces discrimination and injustice, Jasmine began, her voice steady and clear. I hope my experience can inspire others to fight for what's right and to seek meaningful change in their communities. The audience stood and applauded, and Jasmine felt a wave of emotion. The sense of having made a difference and the public recognition were confirmation that her struggle had not been in vain. After the ceremony, Jasmine and Aisha mingled with several guests, including civil rights defenders and activists. Jasmine made new connections and discussed potential volunteer opportunities and collaborations with other organizations. It was an incredible night, Aisha remarked as they prepared to leave the event. You did a wonderful job, and now you're ready to take your mission to the next level. Jasmine smiled, grateful. Yes, I'm excited for the future. I want to keep fighting for justice and making a difference. This is just the beginning of a new journey. With a promising future ahead and renewed determination, Jasmine was ready to move forward and explore new opportunities. Her experience had transformed her, and she was prepared to face new challenges and continue making a difference in her community and beyond. With the new chapter of her life unfolding, Jasmine Carter was determined to use her experience to create a lasting impact. The award she received and the new connections made during the gala were just the beginning. Jasmine was committed to leaving a legacy of change and inclusion, helping to build more just and supportive communities. A few weeks after the gala, Jasmine was in a meeting with the board of the Human Rights Foundation, where she had been invited to become more actively involved with the organization. She was excited, but also a bit nervous about the responsibility. Dr. Robert Ellis, the foundation's director, greeted Jasmine with a warm smile. Jasmine, it's a pleasure to see you again. We're very enthusiastic about the idea of you becoming more involved with our foundation. Your work and experience are exactly what we need. Thank you, Dr. Ellis, Jasmine replied, taking a seat at the table. I'm excited to contribute and help drive real change. Dr. Ellis began to explain the available opportunities. We're in the process of launching a new training program for businesses and schools on diversity and inclusion. We'd like you to lead part of this project, helping to develop the training modules and conduct workshops. Jasmine, excited about the proposal, asked, "What will be the main focus of these modules?" "We want to address topics like awareness of implicit biases, strategies for creating inclusive environments, and techniques for handling discrimination situations," Dr. Ellis explained. "Your work at Magnolia Restaurant has given us valuable insight, and we believe your experience can help shape an effective program." "That sounds amazing," Jasmine said, feeling inspired. "I'm excited to start working on this and make a tangible difference." As Jasmine prepared to take on this new role, she also continued her volunteer work at a local school, helping to create a more inclusive environment and promoting discussions on equality and respect. The experience was rewarding and allowed her to see the positive impact her actions were having in the community. One afternoon, while at the school, Jasmine met with Aisha to discuss an event they were planning together, a lecture on diversity and inclusion for parents and teachers. "How's the planning for the event going?" Aisha asked as they reviewed the details. "It's going well," Jasmine replied, enthusiastic. "We'll have some fantastic speakers and several interactive activities. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to engage the community and start important conversations." "I agree," Aisha said, smiling. "You're really making an impact. It's incredible to see how you're turning your experience into something positive for so many people." As the event approached, Jasmine and Aisha worked hard to ensure everything was in place. The day of the event was a great success, with a room full of parents, teachers, and community members all eager to learn and discuss issues of diversity and inclusion. After the lecture, Jasmine gave a closing speech, reflecting on her journey and what she hoped to achieve with the foundation's work and the event. "I want to thank everyone for being here and for committing to creating a more inclusive and respectful environment," Jasmine said, her voice filled with emotion. "I hope we can take what we've learned today and apply it to our communities to make a meaningful difference." The audience applauded enthusiastically, and Jasmine felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The conversations and engagement demonstrated that the seeds of change were being planted, and the legacy she hoped to leave was beginning to take shape. Later, as she reflected on the event with Aisha, Jasmine said, "It was an amazing day. Seeing so many people willing to learn and engage gives me hope for the future." Aisha agreed. "You're doing an amazing job, Jasmine. Your journey is an inspiration to all of us." Jasmine looked toward the horizon, feeling grateful for the opportunity to contribute to a fairer and more inclusive world. She knew the journey was far from over, but she was ready to continue her mission with determination and hope. With her legacy of struggle and new projects underway, Jasmine felt confident that she was leaving a positive mark on the world, a mark that would promote justice and inclusion for future generations.